Hey, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Empowerment Through Encouragement. And what I want to talk about today is about decision making and not just making better decisions, but making different decisions. And impulse control is actually the outcome of those decisions that you're making and the opportunities that present themselves. And sometimes you look back and you go, did I really say that? Did I really just say that? Or what was I thinking when I did that? And we've all done it. The idea is that those of us that have this experience, this superpower of ADD or ADHD, sometimes we don't think things through. We just respond. It's like ready, fire, aim, and this is what happens. And so it's learning to make and appreciating how to make different decisions that give us a different outcome, something that we're actually after. So how do you set yourself up for success? And when we look at the overall picture, the end result is the culmination of all the ingredients or all the elements, all the experience that lead up to that. And impulse control is no different than just another element. It is a response to a stimuli or a past experience. Will respond in a certain way, and we'll think about it maybe a couple minutes later, a couple moments later, maybe a couple days later, and we ask the question, why did I do that? So when we take an inventory of all the things that lead up to that, we're better equipped to understand why we do what we do. And if there's a change that we're looking to achieve, then we know what to do. It's kind of like having a recipe. You can't put the eggs in with the flour and then blend the butter in. It just won't work. It's just a mess. There's a method, there's a process to make that recipe come out well. Well, the other thing that I want to say, it's not just willpower. We're so inundated with this. If you just had more willpower, you could do it. Well, it's more than about having willpower. It's about setting yourself up for success. And it's more involved than a lot of people take into consideration. We say, well, they're a certain age, so they should do better. So we throw that automatic negative thought to them, and we say that they should, or they should make, or they could make. But is it really possible? It's not just about willpower. It's about making different decisions. It's about making decisions that are motivated, or an understanding of our motivation. Why are we making these decisions? Well, there's a little tool that I have, and I've adopted it from Dr. Amen, and it's called the one-page miracle. And I have a lot of my clients do this, and it kind of gives an idea. It's a visual representation of what is important to us. What is our motivator? What are the things that are valuable to us? And why would we want to do that? It's more than just having a vision board. It's more than just having something that's out in the future. It's actually having something that is in the very real present. And it boils down to a sheet with, let's say, a list of 5 things or 5 pictures. And at the top of it is, what do I want? So let's say you're going to you have a goal for getting a C. Okay, maybe you've had D's, and your goal is to get a C. What is your motivation? What is it that would make you want to get a C, a better grade, grade, a different outcome? Or maybe it's you want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? It's not just to drop pounds, but what else will you get from that? How will your relationships with other people be elevated? How will your relationship with yourself be elevated? How will you be able to get into some of those clothes that you've had, that you paid for, that are there? How will it allow you to do more walking or more singing, or you want to do another activity? How will that give you the motivation to do so? Maybe you want to have a longevity in your life. And so you place your grandchildren on a piece of paper, on a page, and you place that on the refrigerator. And putting things on the refrigerator is not just for kids. But for those of us that do have children that are in that age bracket, we can work with them and give them this idea of a motivation, something that they're after, something that they want to achieve. And we place that on the refrigerator, we place that someplace where they'll see it on a regular basis. And it's a visual tool. Whatever it is, whatever particular area that they want, whether it's relationships, whether it's your spiritual growth, your emotional health, your physical health, your job. Why would you want to go to work? Well, if you put your family on the refrigerator, there's a good motivator for wanting to go to work, because you don't want to be seen as somebody who is not a provider. You don't want to be seen as somebody who can't encourage. You don't want to be seen as a model just filling a role. And we have a lot of that. And I'm not even going to go into that. So parents, this is an area that you can get engaged with your child. And this can be a fun thing. And you create this vision motivation sheet, and you place it to where it's of value and importance. See, when a child knows that their decisions will impact their relationships in the future, it provides motivation needed to make better or different decisions. This becomes their why. It fuels healthy decision making. Now, what goes involved? What are the elements in this? Well, one is healthy blood sugar. Okay. Having the right balanced amount of blood sugar. When blood sugar levels drop, guess what happens? Blood flow to the brain goes down. And it goes down in the prefrontal cortex. That's the area where you're making decisions. And when that decreases, your ability to make good decisions also decreases. It leads to impulsive decisions. It leads to that do and then think about it after it's been done. And you ask that, well, did I really just do that? And what was I thinking, as I said in the beginning? Imagine your child and you're tired and you snap at decisions. You snap at people, events, the dog, the cat, whatever. You snap and you go, what in the world is going on? Well, if your blood sugar's low, then you're going to not think properly. You're not going to have all the equipment. You're not going to be set up for success. And that's what happens when you don't fuel it with what it needs. So here's a strategy. This is where strategy comes in. You start your day with a protein-rich breakfast. You see, so many of our kids are getting up early. They're jumping on the bus, sometimes 6:15 in the morning. That means they've gotten up maybe a half an hour before, or if they've just gotten up 15 minutes before, and you're running and screaming and yelling and having this dialogue on the way out to the bus stop. And then you're telling them that you're not going to take them to school if they miss the bus. How does that start their day? And then you throw in some high carb, low protein food, let's say like Pop-Tarts or Lego My Eggo waffles, or just a quick sugary snack. They get on the bus and they get that rush of energy, and then about an hour later or less, they crash. And what it does is it sets them up for failure for the rest of the day. And they're asking the question, they're trying to process, what is going on? What is happening in my body? It's like, I can't control it because I can't see it. And I don't understand what's happening. So instead, if you have the opportunity, then opt for eggs, opt for nuts, opt for lean protein. It sets up the day filled with better decisions. It gives them the ingredients that they need to achieve the outcome that they desire to have. You know, we all go to bed and we say tomorrow's going to be a better day. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. But it can't be a better day if there's nothing different about it. And that's what this is about. It's about making better decisions or different decisions, but having the equipment to do so. One of the other ways to do this is, number one, you got to get your brain the fuel that it needs, and omega-3s are so critical. I shared several episodes on this. If you want, go back, check those out. How food affects our attention disorder, our superpower, why it gives us hyperactivity. So if we want to fuel the brain with omega-3s, and typically higher in EPAs than DHA. Now, you can get a good quality omega-3. You're probably not going to find it at the local box stores, and I'm not going to mention any names, but if it's in a clear bottle, then that's your first indicator. It should come in a dark bottle so that it protects the properties of what's inside. And if you can get 100 for $8, it's probably not a high quality omega-3. A natural way to get it is by eating fish. I love salmon. Salmon's one of my favorite fishes. But I eat fish 2, 3, 4 times a week. I've constantly got salmon. And I'm fueling my brain with a good quality omega-3. It's supporting my mind. The problem is that the standard American diet, if you break that down, it's called SAD for a reason, is not filled with the nutrients. And this combined with the lack of energy that we have from the food that we're getting, and now we send a child off to sit in a classroom, and now they're supposed to perform at their highest optimal level, but we're not equipping them to do so. Now, when I say we're not equipping them, I'm going to speak for myself. I know as I grew up, my mom didn't have any idea about this stuff. Now you do. Now we have this available to us. It's not anything new. This research has time and trust and tested studies. So when we contribute to a poor environment, we're going to get a poor outcome. It's just, you just can't get it any other way. And studies have shown that higher levels of EPA make a bigger difference, especially with those of us that suffer or deal with ADD or ADHD. This is why I recommend that, you know, when I talked about it earlier, the 3 main things: omega-3s, rhodiola, and acetylcysteine is also great for the brain. But these are things that you can implement. These supplements you can implement. If you're not getting them in your food, then get them through supplements. You can support your child by ensuring that they're getting the healthy fats on a regular basis, not the junk fats. The better your brain, the better your decisions. Eliminating processed sugars. I know I've talked about this several times, but it's worth mentioning again, because I think the more that we understand, when we begin to look at the labels and we start to see all the hidden sugars, all the processed sugars. Now, you're going to get sugars in fruits. That's a different type of sugar. It's not processed. It's not highly processed, where all the nutrients have been stripped out of it. Fruits and vegetables, great. There's a lot of sugar in carrots. I'll add carrots to my salsa. It's an amazing, and it sweetens it up. And it's a natural, unprocessed sugar that is actually releasing other nutrients in the salsa. Now I make a homemade salsa, so I don't buy store-bought stuff. But But high sugar consumption leads to a roller coaster of energy spikes and energy crashes. And this seriously affects the impulse control. Here again, it's giving the proper fuel to get the desired results. There's a Harvard research that demonstrated that consuming high glycemic meal, one that rapidly converts into sugar, results in less blood flow to the brain. What happens is it creates a greater activation of the brain's pleasure center, and it leads to more craving. It leads to poor decision making. 2 hours later, like there was a crash, and the thought, the mind, the activity was limited. It was minimized because you're getting that high fix quickly. It crashes, you hit the peak, and you drop right off. This is why it's so crucial to eliminate processed sugars. You look, or artificial sweeteners and colors. I've seen the studies. I've seen the studies where they show a box of cereal and it's full of color in the United States, and the same company makes the same name brand cereal for the European Union or European countries, and it's not as bright and shiny as the one made in the US. Now, why is that? All of those colors are banned in most countries, but we're consuming them and we're feeding them to our children. And those chemicals are creating a result. These podcasts are designed to give you encouragement, not just to say, hey, go have a nice day. It is encouragement through empowerment. When you know, you can't unknow. And it empowers you to make different choices, different decisions, not just better. We don't want to just put a label on a process or a performance. It is making different decisions. Replacing sugary snacks with a low glycemic, high fiber carbohydrate will not only improve brain function, but it will reduce the cravings that are driving the behaviors that lead to unfavorable outcomes. This is why I like to refer to the plan of success rather than a setup for failure. You see, that's what I want. And we find this in a multitude of dynamics, whether it's school, whether it's work, in relationships. Are we setting ourselves up for success, or are we setting ourselves up for a plan of failure? And, it's been said that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And what these messages, what I'm bringing these podcasts for, is to help give you the tools that I didn't have, that my mom didn't have when I was growing up. And so, managing food allergies is another thing. Okay, so when we start to look at what is the behavior that I'm getting, what is the outcome that I'm constantly getting that I don't want, when we start to monitor what it is that we're bringing in as fuel, then it's incredible how many people I've spoken to have said, man, you know what? I couldn't understand why my kid was acting the way they were acting. I couldn't understand why my partner was acting the way they were acting. And they'd gone undiagnosed. And yet certain foods made them respond a certain other way, and other foods made them respond in a positive way. And what they discovered was, as they began to do an elimination diet, they started to monitor, what is it that made me feel this way? What did I feel like? What did I eat even 3 hours ago that now I'm experiencing this? So you can go from these highs and you can go, I was feeling really good. I was on top of it. And, I went and had a bowl of this kind of cereal, or I had some ice cream, or I ate 3 or 4 or 5 cookies. And now I'm like, I'm not being able to think. I'm not being able to process. If you go back and look at what you've eaten over the last 3 hours, you'll begin to understand what it is, the outcome that you're actually experiencing right now. It's a delayed reaction, it's a delayed response to a food that we brought in. So the fuel doesn't just immediately go to our brain like right now. Sometimes it does. But what is it that's taking that time to process in our gut and then getting into our blood system? And then how is it nourishing our brain? And the people that I've talked to, they've discovered that a lot of these problems are gluten related. Foods that have been sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, foods that have been treated with chemicals. And when you begin to put the math together, when you begin to do your own homework and you become the scientist behind your own experience, they start adding up and they, pattern. Let's look at the pattern. Why are they responding the way that they respond? Now, there have been people that have gone to Chinese restaurants or sushi bars, and when MSG was really, really prominent, people would have these fits of rage. They would have this a lack of brain fuel because their blood was contaminated with MSG, and they were having fits of rage. They began to contribute it to the food that they were eating. But until you take an inventory, it's impossible to make a different choice, a better choice. So foods treated with these kind of chemicals and colorings, they bring about all kinds of different responses. Now, not every kid is like that. So you can say that, well, my son eats, 15 candy bars for breakfast and he's perfectly fine. Well, he's the exception. Or maybe it's the 15 candy bars that are keeping him at that stable, hyper focused or hyperactive state. And you just consider that as part of his personality. It might be something to consider. What are the odds? I mean, listen, if it doesn't work, if you take away the food, and you change the diet, and you do it over an extended period of time, and you don't have different results, if you don't have better results, if you don't have a higher outcome that you want, go back and feed them the junk. But I'm gonna bet that I know it's going to be easier to give them the foods that aren't healthy for them, but it's not convenient in the long run because we're setting them up for failure rather than setting them up for success. So one of the suggestions is try this for 21 days. And you're going, oh my gosh, 21 days. Just consider it 3 weeks. Now, 3 weeks sounds easier than 21 days. And once you get the contamination out of your body, it's amazing how clear thinking takes place. And I've talked to people who have done different fasts. I do fasting continually. And one of the benefits of that is I'm ridding my body of the toxins and the contamination that collect. And by doing a cleanse, I'm resetting my body. Now, if I want to have the bad experience, I'll go back and eat a half a gallon of ice cream, and I wake up the next day and I've got a headache and my joints are painful. And I know, but it's so good. Yeah, but it's causing you so much pain. So observing these behaviors, and you're most likely going to see mood improvements, impulse control, and decision making once they're free of the toxins. Now, one of the apps that I love, I have it on my phone, and it's called Yucca. And I love this app because I can scan anytime I have a question about a product. And it's amazing. I was in one of the big warehouse food chains, and there is an entire protein section about how this is so great, how this is energy, how much protein is in it. So I started scanning the barcode, and they started coming up at 20 out of 100, 19 out of 100, 27 out of 100. And then it lists all the things that are not really on the label, or they're on the label, but you can't even pronounce the word. And what the Yucca app does, it's free. So YUKA. Looks like a little carrot. You can go to your app store, download that dude, scan the UPC symbols on the back of your food, and you begin to see what's actually in that food. And it will tell you. So it'll tell you if there's a hazardous or there's a moderate or there's a low risk. And when you find out what the hazardous is, you find out that they're using these anti-caking agents, that some of those are the same industrial cleaning products that you find on the shelf in the hardware store. Now, you can do the math, you can do the checking. This is your due diligence. This is for the sake of having a life without limits. This is having a life of vitality. You know, when Yucca begins to unmask the dirty little secrets that are hiding in the food that I was purchasing, it equipped me to be empowered. Now, I had a choice. I could ignore that app. I could delete it. I could delete it off my phone. Or I can make better decisions that will give me different outcomes. It has been documented that foods that contain MSG affect the left temporal lobe, the part of the brain that's been implicated for acts of violence. When the blood level is low in that part of the brain, anger stirs up. So if you have a child that is dealing with anger, look at the food allergies. The first question that I want to ask is, what's the nutrition value? What is the nutrition that is coming into this body before we throw a pill at it? Before we make a kid or an adult feel like they're defective or they're broken. I want to say you're not defective, you're not broken. You've just not been given the right tools. So better tools create better outcomes. Now, I also talked, I want to say it was last week, of the value of sleep. It is so important. And it's so overlooked. And it's the cornerstone of decision making. Without adequate sleep, blood flow to the brain decreases. And we see the same pattern of making poor choices, impulsivity, and frustration. Now, maybe I'm reading your mail this morning. Maybe you're going, oh my gosh, these are all the symptoms. They're this, they're this, they're this, they're this. Maybe it's the food. Maybe it's the amount of blood flow going to their brain. You know, we've trained children not to be children anymore. We put them in a box. We have them sit on a seat and they're looking at a box. They're looking at a screen. And they don't get out and they don't get sunshine and they don't get energy, movement. They don't get blood flow going. We've taken things like music and art and phys ed out of the system. These are the things that set people up for success. Now, the thing about sleep is getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Look, a baby will sleep, gosh, I don't know, 20 hours in a day. And their brain is being formed. Their body is being developed. While they're sleeping, their brain is in high mode. It's in active mode. It's creating the chemicals. It's sending the signal. And when we equip ourselves with the plan for success rather than a plan for failure, sleep is one of them. So the idea behind this is our kids are getting on the bus earlier than when we did. I don't remember walking to school. It was about 8:30 in the morning and school would start at 9 o'clock. And then they moved it ahead a little bit. Then it was 8:30 and then they moved it ahead a little bit more. And then it's 8 o'clock. And they moved it ahead a little bit more. And sometimes we're starting at 7:30 and kids are getting on the bus at 5:45, 6 o'clock, 6:15. They're tired getting on the bus. They sit on a bus, a bumpy ride. Then they go to a classroom and now they're sitting down again. It's no wonder they're not able to function. They haven't even been given the equipment. They haven't been given the capacity to sleep. And then if they have the little gadgets, okay, these little things right here, they have those and they're not monitored, they're not controlled, they're on that thing till late hours. All that's affecting the way that their brain is shutting down. And so if they're only getting 6 or 7 hours of sleep at night and it's disrupted or it's unsettled, it's really just a setup for failure. Something to consider. Now, how do we deal with this? We talked about the automatic negative thoughts, and how do we control or how do we manage our areas of stress? Well, stress often accelerates impulse control. It exacerbates the problems. When our impulse control is out of order, it's usually because there's a stress that's involved with this. When we're stressed, we're more likely to make rash decisions, impulsive decisions. This is why stress management, like diaphragmatic breathing. What do I mean by diaphragmatic? That may be a big word for some. Well, engaging the belly, engaging the diaphragm, not just breathing into the chest, but breathing into the diaphragm. If you ever watch a puppy or a baby sleep, you notice their belly rises and it expands and contracts. Well, that's diaphragmatic breathing. And so as we get older, we have to retrain our bodies to actually operate. Yes, actually operate. Most people only breathe deep enough to survive, not to thrive. They're taking very shallow breaths on a normal basis. And if you're breathing through your mouth, you're eliminating the process that takes place as air goes up through the nasal passage and into the back of the head and down the throat and into the system. Breathing in through your nose creates nitric oxide, which expands the cardiovascular. Now, I know I'm getting a little academic there, but this just gives you a snapshot of the value and the importance of breathing through your nose, diaphragmatic breathing. Also, we talked about killing the automatic negative thoughts. If a thought comes in, is it true? Is it 100% true? Who would I be if I didn't have that? And what would be different if that wasn't the case? And so killing these automatic negative thoughts, when we have a negative thought in the morning, it's going to be another one of those Mondays. Well, what if we change that? What if we reframe that? We kill that and say, it is going to be an amazing Monday. And there's where the difference comes in. Teaching your child these techniques can significantly improve their ability to pause, reflect, and make a different decision rather than reacting impulsively. We all have seen ourselves in this mirror where we've acted out of impulse rather than process, pause, reflect, and then make the decision. It's kind of like when somebody says something and you just let them have it. Well, later on, you regret that thought or regret that saying. You contemplate what could have been different. Well, you have the opportunity to go back and correct that. Well, that's what understanding all of this does. It gives you the possibility and the probability to create the future that you are wanting, the future that you're desiring. Setting up a foundation for a calm and controlled environment that lasts throughout the day. So better routine, having a better morning routine. Let's think about your morning routine. You wake up, maybe you wake up and you're startled. You didn't get enough rest. And now you take that energy and you wake the kid up. And you startled them out of a deep sleep. And they fall back asleep. And you go back to the room and you say, you're going to be late. You're going to be late. You're going to miss the bus. And I'm not going to take you to school. And you're going to repeat. And what happens is all of these thoughts, all of this energy is going into their mind. Now, topple that with a sugary breakfast, or, for some of us, it was no breakfast at all. And you're still operating on half sleep. Now you're expected to perform at school at peak performance. This is one of my um, my upsets with the system is that when I discovered that the brain in a young man is not fully developed till they're 27, and the brain in a young woman is not fully developed until they're 25, it really puts a different twist on things, that when we send them out and we tell them to be responsible, but we've only allowed them to have most or 2/3 of the equipment, and now we make them responsible for things that they really don't have the capacity to be responsible for, and they've been set up for failure, not set up for success. And there's an entire system that maximizes and monetizes on this, and it really kind of annoys my last nerve. But when we understand that if we're not giving them the right equipment, how can they perform at the highest level? See, the result is poor impulse control. It's bad decisions. It's unnecessary frustration. We blame our kids for struggling when they're not given the proper ingredients for success. Imagine instead a calm morning with a balanced breakfast, adequate sleep, and a clear sense of motivation for the day ahead. Now, what would you rather have? If you could have chaos and upset and arguing, or you could have success and motivation and balance and just joy walking out the door, which one would you rather have? We say we want this, we say we want that. But if we're fueling it with what it takes to get this, how does it work? Well, making a different decision and equipping them to make better decisions, and it leads to better outcomes at school and then beyond. So, what is it that I want you to take away today? I want you to take away from our discussion that if you balance your sugar, you balance your blood sugar, optimize your omega 3s, eliminate processed sugars, eliminate the food colorings. I know you can squeeze it in a cup, but that squeeze is full of contamination. 1 grain of cyanide will kill you. 14 teaspoons of sugar is a slow death. You ask me, 14 teaspoons of sugar, who would do that? Well, if you ever drink one of those 16-ounce pops, you pick your flavor, you pick your poison. 14 teaspoons of sugar in that. Now imagine just sitting at a table, just eating that stuff. How would you feel? Your belly would hurt. Well, your body's hurting by bringing that in. Getting proper sleep and maintaining a strong sense of motivation. You can help your child by implementing these changes and modeling them in yourself. I wish I'd understood this when I was younger, and this is not condemning. And please know where my heart is. My heart is that I wish I had understood this when I was growing up. I wish my mom would have understood this when I was growing up. It would have saved me a whole lot of what did she call it? Memory lessons. We're going to have a memory lesson. Okay. Pull out the chair. Now, that's the reality of it. She didn't know. I didn't know. And why I bring this information up is to equip you to have the opportunity to not wish that you would have. Now you have a little bit of understanding, because wish is not a strategy. Taking one action, one step towards the outcome, the desired outcome that you want to have. I know it would have saved my mom a whole lot of frustration had she understood that she was actually exacerbating the problem that she wanted to correct. And God knows she tried to correct it, and it wasn't with food. So, implementing one choice today. What can you do one thing today? What's the simplest thing that you could do? You could put a uh, one-page miracle sheet on your refrigerator. You could put 5 reasons why you want this. What is the motivation behind it? And you can start to look at the Yucca app. And I know you're not going to like it in the beginning, but it gives you alternatives. So it's not just telling people that they should do something without giving them options. That app actually gives you different choices that you can make, gives you different solutions, different products that you can replace that with. And it tells you what the score is from 0 to 100. If you do this, not only you, but your child and their future is going to be so much different, so much better. The decisions we make today create the outcomes we have tomorrow, and life overall will improve. And I want to say that this could be the beginning of having a life without limits. Now, if you've enjoyed this, if you've gained something out of this, I just want to put this up here. And I want to share with you that you've been empowered. And until we meet the next time, have an outstanding week.